Great. Thank you so much for being here today. I know that people have a lot of options for ways to spend their time, so I always think it's a real honor when people choose to spend their time to come to something like this. So thank you to the people in the room and to the people on Zoom. I was quite honored to be invited to speak here at the Atwater Library. For me, libraries and community centers are kind of the beating hearts of community. They're some of the only places that people can go that are free or very low cost, and they welcome everyone. And there aren't a lot of spaces like that. And Atwater Library does just a fantastic job with offering services to the community, including all this great learning through the financial literacy program. So I was kind of, I was pretty excited about being asked to do this. So thanks to all of you, and thanks to the Atwater Library and to the federal government for sponsoring this financial literacy series. So today's talk is going to be really hitting on some high points of what I've learned from being a retirement coach. So retirement is really a process. It's one of the things I'm going to focus on. It's not a one and done, and any of you who are in the room who are retired know this. It affects so many aspects of people's lives, way beyond work and money. And about a third of Canadians struggle. They have some challenges at some point with retirement, and it's very individual. So I'll talk about that. The way you enter retirement can really affect how you experience it. Talk about the common phases, normal to have some difficulty adjusting, and then I want to talk about some interesting transition stories of some of my clients and other people that I know. So just to get a sense of the audience, just wondering, who here and on the Zoom is planning on retiring, but not retired yet? Just put your hands up. Okay, couple, all right. How about on the chat? Are people putting their hands up? So cute. Great. All right. How many people are how many people are semi-retired? Like they do some part-time work or that kind of thing. If you're in the room, put your hand up, but on the chat. Okay, not retired yet. Somebody raised their hand. How many people have been retired for 5 years or less? Okay. Or less. Oh, so you're 5 years or more? Okay. So we have kind of a mixed audience of people. And what I can tell is that there's also lived experience in the room. And so, I'd like to also ask you folks in the room about their experiences with retirement. So just to get started, why do people need retirement coaching? When I went to do my training at Concordia University, I was training how to be a personal and professional coach. I didn't know that retirement coaching was a thing. I just had no knowledge of it. I was really learning how to help people in their life and work and personal challenges. And I was taking it on as a third career, really, because I was ready to start wrapping up my consulting business and I wanted to do something else. But then when I became certified and I started getting clients, the age demographic of my clients skewed a little older. So I was having quite a few people who were in their late 50s, early 60s. And this question kept coming up over and over again, that people were like, I'm trying to figure out what's next. And some people were, quite rightly worried about the next stage. Some people were looking forward to it in anticipation, but they still kind of wanted to talk to someone to kind of figure out the process and figure out what they wanted to do next. And so in retirement coaching, similar to lots of kinds of coaching, I work with people on identifying what they're struggling with And I'm not a counselor. I don't tell people what to do. Coaching is an advice-free zone. It's about me helping people figure out what their challenges are and where they want to go moving forward. So some of the things I do with retirement coaching clients is, normalizing that transition can be hard, identifying why it's hard for them, and I'll talk a little more about how the way you leave work can make it particularly challenging. Creating a vision for the post-work stage. What do they want it to look like? And in 6 months, but in 5 years, but in 10 years. What do they want retirement to look like? What is the things they want to do? What do they want to experience? Who do they want to be accompanying them in this stage? And then clarifying, okay, what don't you know right now? What do you need to know? And then, and this is fundamental to all coaching, is making plans and goals for how they're going to figure out what they need to do. And then as the coach, I'm the accountability partner with them to say, okay, you had these plan, okay, we meet every 2 weeks, we talk about where you're at with your plan, what you've discovered, how you're moving forward, and I also provide support. Because sometimes people just really need to talk it out, and sometimes they don't have anyone else to talk it out with. I'm not a therapist, but I am a listener. And so that's kind of my role as a retirement coach. So isn't retirement supposed to be just a good time? So why do people struggle with it? And it is a good time. It can be the best time. Of course it can. But sometimes people struggle as well. And I think there's a couple of things. One is that the popular image of retirement, the sun is always shining and everybody has great haircuts and really good teeth and they're on the beach and they're having a great time. Life isn't like that and retirement's not like that. It can be like that sometimes. But so I think there's this expectation that it's something that's going to be really positive for everyone. And so I think sometimes there's a letdown with that. Also, so many changes happen at the same time as retirement. So retirement for most people, retirement and aging are happening simultaneously. And then there are all the changes that come about with relationships. You're leaving something behind. You're leaving an identity. You're leaving a pattern. You're leaving a structure behind. And you're moving into something unknown. And relationships can change a lot at this time. And I'll go into a bit about some of those challenges. And so one of the things we differentiate is that change is external. Change is a thing that happens or happens to you, has happened to you. You decided to leave your job or you lost your job. That's the thing that happened. Transition is the way you move through it, the way you deal with it psychologically and emotionally and get through it to the other side. So it's more of an internal process. And that's when we get into this, get ready for the messy middle. And so the messy middle is really the transitional process where you have the long goodbye, okay? You have had, let's say, a professional identity, you've had a workplace you've been going to, you've had a structure, and that is ending, that's an ending. And then the messy middle is, well, okay, is my whole life going to be about leisure now? Is that enough? What's my purpose now? Where do I want to go next? Is the person I'm going through this phase with the person I want to continue going through this phase with? What do people expect from me? What have I not done in a long time that I'd really like to do again? Rediscovering things that really, were fantastic things that you like to do. So there's this messy middle which for some people doesn't last that long, and for some people it lasts longer. They're really trying to figure out, where am I going with this? And then the new beginning is when you can figure those things out and you move through and you start to get real comfortable with what's going to be the next stage. I'm not going to be too doom and gloom here, but there can be a dark side of retirement. And I'm just wondering if anyone knows if they've had the experience, or they know of someone who has struggled with retirement. You can put up your hand, or on the chat if people want to put up their hands if you know of someone who's really struggled. Okay, a couple of people. There's Lorraine. Lorraine is very participative. Thank you, Lorraine. And I'm just wondering if you had one word to describe why that was so difficult for them, just shout it out. I'll repeat it on the mic. Do you know why people had difficulty? Why they struggled?
It was my father, and I don't think he had anything else planned. Oh, thank you. So, my dad, and he was kind of forced to stop working after a health event, and he just didn't know what to do with himself, and resisted it. So I think it was very hard for him.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. But that's pretty common. Did you have your hand up? Did you want to share?
I did have my hand up. Yeah, but I was a bit shy. Yes, so, I'm thinking of myself, but also my mother, when she was a factory worker for years, and so she was forced to retire at 65, and soon developed dementia. And I believe it was because she needed work. Work defined her. She had friends at work, but all she did when she retired was sit in front of the television. She had no interest in doing anything. And then she went on living to be 94 and spent many of those years in a nursing home. And I think that's a tragic thing, to be forced into something where you're giving up your identity because the law or the rules say that you must.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but this, it can happen, right? And especially, I think, and I'm going to get into this, is the way people enter retirement. Because there's a kind of an idea that, you have a certain date, and you pick your date, and, you're going to have a party. A lot of people don't leave work that way. And I think it's much harder to enter retirement when it's something involuntary. And thank you for sharing that. Thanks to both of you. I don't know if we had anything in the chat. Nothing in the chat? Okay. So, like I said, I'm not going to go too far into this, but just to hit some highlights, that about a third of Canadians find retirement transition stressful, and some of them develop mental health complications because of it, like depression. Retirement often takes longer than people expect. And some of the things that come about with retirement are the things that come about with aging, like isolation. Maybe someone had a lot of their social circle through work. Gray divorce has increased. Gray divorce meaning separation or divorce after 50. And there is some evidence that substance use disorder can be more common with older people. And that may be due to a lot of things. Unstructured time, boredom, isolation. And so that can be something that, that can present in retirement, that maybe the person did not have that issue before. And this one is really like, this is key to what both of you were saying, is leaving work has an effect on how you approach retirement. And of course, work is not the same as it was 20 or 30 or 50 years ago. And many people change jobs throughout their careers. There's a lot more gig work. There's a lot more contract work. Different times when there are big layoffs. People enter retirement differently. And when it's involuntary, it's a lot harder. And so one of the things that I do when I start working with clients is always to find out, how did you leave work? Why did you leave work? Because if a client has left work because of a toxic work environment that forced them out, the first thing we're going to talk about is not, oh, and you're planning a trip to Hawaii now. It's going to be, how are you dealing with this? How are you moving through this? I'm not a psychotherapist, but we talk about how they left and how that's affecting how they're planning their future. So, there's lots of different ways to leave work, and it can change things quite a bit, and it can affect that transition a lot more. Finances count. Excuse the pun, sorry, I had to do that. And this is part of the financial literacy series. So there are many other resources around finances. And so I will direct people to those resources from the library because I'm not a specialist in this area. But because it is an integral part of the next phase, I always do talk to my clients about finances. I don't do the dollars and cents. My biggest question is, do you know your financial situation? And the scariest thing that a client says to me is, I have a guy and he says I'll be fine. The guy could be the most ethical financial planner in the world, but when you don't know your own situation, you're putting yourself in a bit of a situation of vulnerability. So what I always say to clients is, even if it's hard, even if you've never done this before, even if you're in a household where somebody else took on most of the responsibility, this is the time to really understand your financial situation so that you can just know how you're entering the next stage. Most people's income decreases. It's rare that someone retires and their income increases. One of the things that we used to always say before COVID was, well, when you stop going to work, your expenses are going to go down because you won't be buying work clothes and commuting and eating lunches out. Well, COVID threw all that out the window. So most people have been used to not spending on that for a few years. So their income's it's going to go down because it's a retirement income, but it's not going to drop down because all of a sudden they're not buying work clothes, commuting, et cetera, et cetera. Some of those expenses are ones that a lot of people don't incur anymore. So the drop down, it's going to be different. And, just to look at some of those questions, and some of these are in the financial literacy. One of the previous workshops was about sources of income in retirement. And some decisions that people can make around that. When do you take QPP, OAS, et cetera? Surprisingly, sometimes when people have looked into it, they realize, oh, I worked at this company 28 years ago, and I put some money into that retirement fund. And they might find that they have a little nest egg somewhere. That kind of thing. That's a nice thing to find out. The good thing about becoming educated about it is that it also allows people to know, will I need to work again? Or, do I want, if I work again, is it because I want to? So these are all kinds of things that I talk to clients about, like I said, not the dollars and cents, but the ideas around it. And a lot of people talk about the phases of retirement and later life as the go-go, the go-slow, and the no-go. And it's pretty hard to judge exactly how much you'll need in each of those phases, but it's good to think about it. Let's say some people want to front-end load their retirement. First year, they're going to blow it out of the park. They're like, there's no time like now. I'm going to go on a big trip. I'm going to do some adaptations to my house so that I could stay in my house a long time. And then, other stages they're going to spend less. Let's say in the go slow, they might say, I don't want to take a flight to Australia. It's just too hard on me. I don't want to do that. Or I've developed a health issue that means that insurance is really expensive. So, I'm not going to do a lot of travel right now. The no-go is the hardest one. And that is when you may need an alternate level of care. You may need to be in a retirement home or something else where you're going to be spending a lot more money on that kind of care. And that is something that's very, very hard to predict. So it's good to keep it in mind, but it's hard to know. But some of the things I ask too is, can you get comfortable with deaccumulation? Which is just a fancy way to say, can you get comfortable with spending the money you saved? And that's a really good question, because if you've been saving for a couple of decades, sometimes it's really hard for people to see that going down bit by bit. And they might limit their enjoyment in life because they're really, really scared to spend. And just got a little anecdote about a lady I know who lives in a condo, paid off condo that's probably worth $2 million. And she does her ironing in the hallway because she doesn't want to use the electricity in her unit. And she asks her kids to shower in the pool room downstairs because she doesn't want to use up her water. Now, this is a lady, she's not a skinflint or anything. She lived through the Depression. She lived without money for a long time, and now that she has it, she really has a hard time spending it. So, that's something that it's good to be aware of and to kind of assess the reasonableness of this and whether it's affecting your enjoyment in life. One of the things that's kind of fun that I do with clients sometimes, and it's really, really fun if you're in a couple, is to do money quizzes. And I haven't listed any here because there are lots of online quizzes that will tell you your money type. And so you can answer a series of questions and it will say, you're a saver, you're a spender, you're a provider, you're, all these different labels that they have. And if you do it as a couple, then you can talk about it and maybe it'll help you figure out what your money patterns have been. And do you want to keep using these money patterns in the future or not? But it's just fun stuff. It's not diagnostic, it's just fun. So, but I do have a question because I also want people to identify their money dials. And money dials are things like areas where you like to spend money and you're perfectly comfortable doing that. And, I'll give an example of someone who, really loves good food. And they say, you know what, in retirement, I'm going to Atwater Market one day a week, and I am just going to buy the duck confit and the cheeses, and I'm going to go to the SAQ and get a good bottle of wine because that's, for that person, that's their money dial. And somebody else might say, you know what, I don't mind living frugally most of the time because once a year I want to do a trip. That's my money dial. So I'm just curious, and I'd like people to put this in the chat, but also pop up in the room and let me know. If you know your money dial, what's your money dial? Anybody? Everybody's so shy.
Haircuts and hair color. I'm not stopping that for a long time.
Excellent, excellent. Anybody else?
Thank you. Yeah, what I spend my money on is loofah farm, but not every week because I can't afford every week. But so that's fresh organic vegetables that are grown on rooftops.
Oh,
There's
wow.
3 different
Very good.
rooftops, and that's really important to me.
Oh, would you say the name again?
Oh, loofah farms.
Loofah Farms. All
Yes.
right. So that getting those fresh organic veggies is one of your dials. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, in my case, I like to go to good restaurants every now and again and enjoy it. Not, like I'll have the second glass of wine and I'll have the appetizers and,
lovely.
and all that. Yeah, a real classy meal, and then enjoy it, and then we're back to either sandwiches or something, or a salad made quickly at home. So during the week.
Lovely, lovely. So that's your money dial. Beautiful restaurant meals. Anybody else? No. Well, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. You have to put your hand up. If you... Okay, once a year they go on a nice trip. Anything else? No? That's okay. And this slide is just about, just to follow up on the finances. These are just some resources, and you're all going to get the slides, so I'm not going to go through this. I will just highlight that McGill has a free personal finance course online, and it goes through all kinds of things about investing and different areas of personal finance. It's free. You can access it at any time, and you even get a certificate if you complete it. So that's something that McGill offers to the community for free. And some of these other ones, Atwater Library has a lot, but these are just some of the financially related ones that I highlighted. So mutual funds and ETFs, wills and estates, retirement income sources, and aging in place is one that really also has a lot of very specific information about aging in place in Quebec. So here's some of the really fun, good news about aging and retirement in Quebec. Quebecers have one of the highest life expectancies in the world. So that's a really, really great thing. And if you can have a long health span as well as a long lifespan, that's even better. And what that means is that for Quebecers, retirement is quite a long period of time. So on average, men can expect to live about 16 years after retirement, and women over 20. So that also gets to the point that retirement is a process. What you're doing at 66 may not be the same as 76, may not be the same as 86. And there's, that adjustment over time. But overall, Quebecers have very long lifespans, and I think some other benefits is that, I think we all agree with this. Quebecers like to have a good time. They put a large value on leisure, and that bodes well for the later years. So in retirement coaching, I'll go through all these different areas with people. Sometimes these are areas that were, originally of concern to them, and then sometimes I just go over them because they're things they haven't thought about at all. So I won't go over them all in this slide, but some of them that are really big are unstructured time, because that's something that a lot of people have difficulty with. Time with a partner, which can be the best of times and not the best of times, depending. And so for a lot of couples, retirement can actually be a kind of a point of fragility in a relationship, because they might have very different ideas about what they want to do. Or you might have one partner who wants to retire and the other person says, no, I'm going to work forever. Right? And so it can be tricky, and if they're on the same page and they have common interests or develop common interests, it can be the best of times. Another one that I talk about a lot with clients is volunteering. Many of my clients want to have purposeful volunteer work in later life. And so we talk about that, and I have an assessment that I can do with them about, what kind of client group do you want to work with? Do you want to do something that once a year, for example, like you volunteer at the Fringe Festival, and then you get to go see a lot of Fringe plays for free? Or do you want to do something where you're doing it every week, like engagement with a church or a food bank or something like that? Because there are many different ways to volunteer, and it has to be the right gig. If you want to work directly with people and the organization you're interested in wants you to stuff envelopes in a back room, you're not going to find that satisfying. But somebody else will find it satisfying because that's what they want to do. So it's really a matter of matching yourself to the volunteer activity, and people are sometimes surprised that it's a little harder to get a volunteer activity than they might have expected. So if you're working with youth or people who are vulnerable, you might need a police records check. Sometimes there's a training orientation period. So on a later slide, I have a link to the Volunteer Bureau of Montreal, because they have all kinds of different activities and you can filter them. and you can get notices when they have things coming up. So that's a really good resource for people. Another thing that we talk about quite a bit, and this is different again from previous generations, is adult children. Because things have changed in different ways, socially and economically, a lot of people going into retirement may have adult children living at home. And so how is that? If it's something they want to have a multi-generational home, and they're happy living together, and they get along well together, and they're mutually supportive, that's fantastic. If it's more of a failure to launch situation, or the adult child really is struggling, it could be someone with special needs, it could be someone who's really having difficulty finding employment. The person who's retiring may have a financial obligation to the adult child and need to keep supporting them. So this is a little different from previous generations. We all know that there are more adult children living at home, and it can be a really great situation, and it could be a situation where it could put some strain on someone in retirement. So the good news is retirees who transition more easily, and I've made this like a little series of check boxes, so when people get the slides, if they want to check these off and see where they are at, they understand their household finances, they had some control over how they retired, they're in sync with people in their life who they're going to be in community with as they retire. They've got common ideas about how they want this next stage to be. They're not worried about their housing. Often it's people who were able to put an end to their work life with some kind of a defining experience. Now, it doesn't have to be a trip. It could be that they had a beautiful dinner with coworkers, or they had a beautiful dinner with extended family. There was something that marked that end in a good way that they were able to move forward. And that's why when people are fired or laid off or leave work in a bad way, that's one of the reasons they struggle, because they didn't have a good end. And so they're moving forward in a different way. Being realistic about future plans. One of the things I think of is, someone who lives in a triplex and they have an exterior, curving metal staircase. And, at the time they retire, they're like, fine, I can do stairs, no problem. But they're thinking realistically, in 5 years, I might want to move to a main floor, something like that. So it's just realistically thinking about the future. People who are willing to get help when they need, that really helps them. I know people who have, for example, once they retired, they're in their home all the time. They're like, oh, I got to clear this place out. It's really hard to do it on their own, but they said, you know what, it's worth it to me. I'm going to hire someone to help me. If you're willing to accept help, that helps a lot. People who are physically active, especially if you're physically active with other people, this is something that keeps people very, very healthy. So physical activity is great. Physical activity and social connection is greater than the sum of its parts. And I don't mean necessarily doing a marathon. There could be people who they have something that they always like to do. They have a dog, they walk their dog every day. They go to the local community center and do aquafit or swim links. It doesn't have to be something that's, extraordinary, unless that's what they want, if they want to become a very high-level athlete. But just to have some kind of physical activity, hopefully that gets them out of the house, creates structure and social connection. That's something that's really important for people. And one of the things that helps people adjust is if they're able to let go of the past work identity and grievances. It's really hard for people for whom work identity was very important to them to leave it behind. And if you can't leave it behind, if you really feel stuck, you're like, I used to be important. I used to be a manager. I used to whatever, and now I'm not. That leads to quite a bit of struggle. If people can leave their work identity behind and say, you know, I had a great career, that, you know, or I had a great, it didn't have to be career. It could be, I had a wonderful job. I liked the people I worked with. I provided good service. I was happy doing that. And it's okay. I can leave that behind. It's a really healthy way to move forward to the next stage. If people have grievances from work, they were fired, they were laid off, new management came in and got rid of their whole team, there was a lot of loss, there was a lot of that. If they cannot move beyond it, if they think about that for 5 years, 10 years, they're still talking about it as if it happened yesterday, they're going to have a hard time. So that's something also to work out. And it could be something that someone needs to work out with a therapist. It's going far beyond the range of coaching. Maybe they really need therapy. And so there are some emotional states of retirement. And this really, the first one is really for people who do have that, you know, classic kind of retirement where they're able to set a date and, you know, say, okay, on February, I'm going to turn 64 and I'm going to leave work. Then they have a date, they can look forward to it, there's that anticipation. As I mentioned, not everybody gets that. But for people who do, there's that happy anticipation. Okay, then right after that, I'm going to do this other fancy thing that I wanted to do. I'm going to go on that trip. I'm going to go visit my sister in Calgary. I'm going to whatever. The honeymoon period is usually, could last a year, could last more. And that's often when people do that front-end loading of early retirement. I'm going to do a trip. I'm going to spend my whole summer at, my friend's cottage. She offered it to me. I'm going to spend the whole summer at my friend's cottage. Never done that before. I had one client who her goal was, she says, I am going to play golf every single day. And so it wasn't a big fancy trip, but she got so much out of it because she said normally she could only golf on weekends. And so that was she was so excited about that. That was one of her biggest things was, I'm signing up for golf lessons. I'm going to golf every day. It's going to like golf. That's what she wanted. So that was the front end of her retirement. But it's not unusual to have a bit of a disenchantment after the honeymoon. And it's really, okay, I've done the things, I've gone on trips, I've done some other things, I've set up some few things in my life. Like what? Like how long is this going to go on? What am I going to do for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years? And it's a phase that a lot of people go through, and unfortunately, some people also feel a little guilty about this. Say, well, like, what's wrong with me? I have enough money, I have a place to live, I was able to go on a good trip, and now I'm kind of feeling weird. I'm feeling purposeless, or I don't know, feel kind of weird and odd, kind of bored, kind of sad. And that kind of leads to the reorientation period, when they say, I've really got to figure this thing out. Sometimes they do that with a coach, sometimes they do that with a partner, sometimes it's just their own exploration that flips them over to the newer stage. And after that can be the adjustment and stability to a new life, where they say, okay, now I know what my new role is. I know what my life's going to be like now, and I'm really enjoy it. I've shaped it the way that I want. So I'd like to share a couple of stories about transitions with you, and it would be great if other people could also share some story of transitions. Just to give an idea of some of the different ways people do it. And so these people were either clients or friends. So I'm not using their real names and images to protect their privacy, but the stories are real. So Bernard was an archivist in Ontario City, and he was at the end of his career, super bored, said he'd have to change his job or take retirement. So he decided to take retirement and came to Montreal, for a little post-retirement trip and said, this place is amazing. I think I could live here. And decided spontaneously that he was going. He was a single guy. He had his little dog, but he was unpartnered, and he decided, I'm going to move to Montreal. So he got a place. He rented his place in his old city and moved to Montreal. And he'd never had any idea of doing this before. And it was really great and exciting, and he was, setting up his new apartment and everything and getting used to where he was going to walk his little dog and all that kind of thing. And then about a few months in, he's like, I don't have a community here. It was an exciting move, but I don't have a community. And so he decided very deliberately to start creating community. So he signed up for courses at the McGill Lifelong Learning and Concordia Seniors Learning. He started to talk to people in his building, met other dog owners, and started to meet people and start to create a new community in a new city. And now he continues to do courses all the time, loves it, all of his passions, history of the Balkans, art history, all kinds of design stuff. I mean, he just takes all kinds of courses, loves it. He volunteers as a travel group leader for a design group, and now he is a docent at one of the Montreal museums. So it was an interesting transition that he did. This is another person, Gwen. I'm calling her Gwen, who went through the process in a very different way. She lived in the States, but her parents lived here, and her parents became ill. And so she quit her job to come back to Montreal to take care of her parents. And unfortunately, both of her parents passed away. And she was in a great period of grieving. And it was really hard for her. And this is not what she had thought her life was going to be like. She was very sad. She was really having a hard time with it. She decided to get therapy, worked with a very, very, very good therapist, and slowly started building up what she wanted to do next. She'd always been into sports, very high level, played very high level sports, university level sports, and that kind of thing. And she found a part-time job being a hockey timekeeper. And it took her back to something that she used to have a lot of joy in, and took her back to sports, and it was a little part-time job. Then she decided, well, I have more time, and I want to work some more. And she got another job delivering flowers. And she really found it very satisfying, because she said every time people opened the door to her, they were happy. And she was delivering flowers often to elderly people, and it reminded her of her parents. And she thought, this is so lovely. I'm bringing this beautiful thing to these people. It makes me happy. So it helped her to move through her grieving. And then the other thing now that she does in summertime is she scoops ice cream. And she said that's the other job that makes people happy. So, so she found things that made her happy, that helped her move through her grieving. And now her project is to remake her parents' house into her own home. And that was a hard thing. She left decades ago, and she said, her room would still look like it was when she was a teenager. And all the decor was her parents' decor, which reminded her of loss. And she had a very cute story about deciding what to do with some of these things. And she sold a beautiful chandelier, gorgeous, ornate chandelier, not her style at all, but had been very precious to her parents. She ended up selling it on Facebook Marketplace to a young restaurateur who was thrilled, because what he wanted was to do a restaurant that had this old, glamorous, beautiful kind of vibe. And now she can go to that restaurant and see her parents' chandelier. So it was a difficult transition, but And of course, like all transitions, she's still going through it, but she's made a really, really good transition to a new life. This is based on a client of mine, Allison, who was a nurse, and she actually needed a lot of coaching to actually leave work. She'd been a public health nurse, she was a researcher, and she knew that she wanted to leave because she wanted to write full time. But she also knew that her workplace was going to give her a hard time because she was a very valuable person and her work was really valued. And she said, I know they're going to try to keep me. I know they're going to try to discourage me from leaving, and they're going to say, oh, just another project, just another project. So we had to work together on her negotiating her leaving and her practicing how she was going to respond to them trying to make her stay. She was successful in doing it. And she said when she left the office that last day, took her box of stuff, she said, she went outside and she threw her hat in the air like Mary Tyler Moore, because she was like, woof, okay, new phase. And since then, she's written and published a book, and she continues to write, and she will publish more books. And then talking about how transition is, it goes on and on and on. She was settled in this new life of writing. She's a runner. She really built everything. And then she got a bunch of grandkids and had to renegotiate again with her partner. How are we going to do this grandparenting thing and let me still have my writer's life? And they were able to negotiate that. So I guess my kind of summary with some of these things is, if it's difficult, if you're feeling challenged, okay, because it's hard doesn't mean it's bad. Discomfort can lead you, when people are in a state of not knowing, they're feeling kind of, I don't know why I'm feeling sad. I don't know why I'm feeling lost. I don't know why I'm feeling purposeless. It's not necessarily bad if it leads you to understanding what you might want more of in your life. And one of the things that I've left on the back table, or the library's left on the back table for you, is a wheel of life that I do with clients, where they plot different areas of their life to see how balanced their life is in all kinds of different areas. And that becomes a starting point for then figuring out, where do you want to go next? What are the areas that are a little less satisfying for you? So I'm going to just leave this with you. These are some good ideas, but I'd rather move on to really talking about whether people have transition stories that they wanted to share. And I'm just wondering if would anybody in the room do they have an inspiring story about someone that they'd like to share to kind of help us all figure out some of the interesting different ways that people do this transition?